The administrative outpost on Krivara 7 wasn't supposed to be complicated. Elia had signed up for a 6-month rotation cataloging supply chain, logistics for the Galactic Coalition's frontier expansion, project, paperwork, numbers, quiet. That's what they'd promised her. They hadn't mentioned the cubs. Elia stared at the glowing data pad on her desk, stylus hovering over a half-completed requisition form for medical supplies. The fluorescent lighting of the prefab office hummed overhead, casting everything in that particular shade of sterile white that made her miss Earth's natural sunlight. She'd been working for 7 hours straight, and her lower back was screaming at her to stand up, stretch, maybe take a walk outside. But she couldn't. Not yet. The coalition coordinator needed these reports by 0800 hours tomorrow, and she was still 300 items behind. A soft, chittering sound came from the doorway. Elia didn't look up. She'd learned that looking up only encouraged them. "I'm working, Skrin," she said, her voice tired but not unkind. "You should be with your nestmates in the sleeping quarters." More chittering. Closer now. The Krevarans were a reptilian species, roughly humanoid but covered in iridescent scales that shifted between deep purples and blues depending on their emotional state. The adults stood nearly 7 feet tall, with elongated snouts filled with needle-sharp teeth and eyes that could track movement in near-total darkness. Terrifying, really, if you didn't know them. But the cubs? The cubs were different. Skrin appeared at the edge of Elia's peripheral vision, a small figure barely 3 feet tall, scales still soft and shimmering with the uncertainty of youth. His eyes were too large for his head, giving him a perpetually startled expression that Elia had privately decided was the most adorable thing in the known universe. Not that she'd admit it to anyone. Elia human working. Skrin observed in the broken standard that the cubs were still learning. "Working long time?" "Yes," Elia confirmed, finally glancing at him. His scales were shifting toward a worried orange. "I have a lot to finish." "Hungry?" "I ate earlier." This was a lie. She'd forgotten to eat. Again. Skrin's head tilted in that peculiar way the Krevarans had, like a dog hearing a strange sound. His internal eyelids flickered, a sign he didn't believe her. Before Elia could return to her work, Skrin chittered loudly. Within seconds, 4 more cubs appeared in the doorway. They moved in that coordinated way that nestmates did, almost like a single organism split into multiple bodies. Each carried something in their small clawed hands. "Oh no," Elia said. No, you don't have to." But they were already approaching, their scales bright with excitement. Skrin reached her desk first. With great ceremony, he placed a chunk of something on top of her data pad. It was roughly the size of her palm, glistening with moisture, and smelled strongly of the synthetic protein rations the Coalition provided for carnivorous species. Raw, synthetic meat, on her requisition forms. "Best piece," Skrin announced proudly. "I save for Elia human." The other cubs crowded around, each placing their own offerings on her desk. One piece landed directly on a stack of inventory reports. Another slid across her stylus, leaving a wet trail. A third was carefully positioned on top of her empty coffee mug. Elia's desk was becoming a shrine of regurgitated meat rations. "This is..." she started, then stopped. The cubs were staring at her with those enormous eyes, scales shimmering with hope and pride. In Krevaran culture, sharing food, especially with someone outside your nest, was the highest form of affection. The cubs were offering her their most precious resource. How could she refuse? "This is very kind of you," Elia finished, her voice softer now. She picked up the piece Skrin had given her, turning it over in her hands. The synthetic protein was designed to mimic the texture and nutritional content of real meat, but Coalition regulations required it to be consumed cooked for human digestive systems. 5 pairs of eyes watched her expectantly. Elia looked at the meat. She looked at the cubs. She thought about the 17 reports still waiting for her. The coordinator who would be furious if she missed the deadline. The career implications of falling behind on a simple administrative rotation. Then she thought about Skrin, who'd saved his best piece for her. About the cubs who'd left their warm sleeping quarters to make sure the strange human who worked too long wasn't hungry. "You know what?" Elia said, pushing her datapad aside. "I think I need a break anyway." The cubs chittered with delight, their scales exploding into brilliant golds and silvers. 20 minutes later, Elia sat on the floor of her office, surrounded by 6 Krevaran cubs, She'd managed to quietly dispose of the raw meat when they weren't looking, but she'd replicated a tray of their cooked rations from the food synthesizer. The cubs didn't seem to notice or care that she wasn't eating their exact offerings. They were simply happy she was eating it all. Skrin curled against her side, his small body surprisingly warm through her uniform. The other cubs formed a loose circle, making soft, contented sounds as they nibbled their own portions. "Elia human works too much," Skrin said sleepily. "Probably," Elia admitted, running her hand over his soft scales. "But someone has to make sure you guys get your supplies." "Supplies can wait," Skrin replied with the simple wisdom of youth. "Pack more important," Elia smiled. The data pad on her desk continued glowing, the unfinished reports waiting patiently. She'd work late. She'd finish them. She always did. But right now, sitting on the cold floor of a prefab office on a frontier world, covered in cubs who'd shared their meat rations to make sure she was cared for, Elia realized something important. Humanity hadn't spread across the stars because they were the strongest or the smartest. They'd done it because they could sit on a floor covered in alien children and feel completely at home. The reports could wait another hour. Her pack needed her first.